Hello BookTube, I'm here today because I was recently going through my bookshelves and I realized that I owned a lot of books that I didn't need to own anymore, as is the case with a lot of people on BookTube. I did a lot of decluttering, and at the end of the day I had selected over 20 books that I didn't need to keep anymore and that I was going to pass on to other people, and so I decided to do what a lot of people call a book unhaul. I kind of don't like that term because unhaul isn't a real word, but that might be in the title of the video anyways, just because keeping with current technology or current terminology is simplest. Rest assured that these books are all going to go to good homes. There is a person in my neighborhood with a little book library. If you haven't heard of what those are just little kind of like book nests, if you will, where books are just kept in neighborhoods and anyone can take a book or leave a book. There's one in my a couple blocks away from where I live, and I'm going to be leaving some in there. I'm going to be selling some. I'm going to be giving some to friends, and yeah, don't worry, they will all go to good homes. I will also be donating some to the library, so other people will soon appreciate them, and without further ado, let's get started. The first book I have is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. Now, this book is really popular. I think, it was a New York Times bestseller. It was about Henrietta Lacks, who was a poor black woman in the 1950s, who had cancer in her cervix, and cells were taken from her biopsy without her knowledge, and these cells were currently are so incredibly important to modern science. They were responsible for the invention of the polio vaccine and for in vitro fertilization, and for the discovery that we have 46 chromosomes instead of 48, and it's because her cells divide endlessly. Rebecca Skloot wanted to uncover the life behind the woman who had the cells, because no one knew anything about her, even though she had contributed so much to science. And it turns out that her family lived in relative poverty, and they didn't even have health insurance, and so it was an interesting book. I learned a lot about the inequalities in medicine, but at the end of the day, this book felt like it was a lot about Rebecca Skloot's journey and not about Henrietta Lacks' journey, and that's what felt most inappropriate to me. I didn't want to read a book about this American journalist Rebecca Skloot. I wanted to read about Henrietta Lacks, but she kind of made it into a book about herself. But there is still a lot to be gleaned here. Like, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, I think. But I'm just never going to read it again, and so hopefully someone else will get something out of it. Next book I have is My Life with Chimpanzees, the fascinating story of one of the world's most celebrated naturalists by Jane Goodall. This is a children's book I have, and it's just, I'm a huge fan of Jane Goodall. I love her. I love her work, and she's absolutely wonderful. And it's just, as you can tell, like, it's designed for like a middle grade child or someone, because the words are quite large. This is just her own kind of biography of her life and of her, like a mini biography of her life and of her work. And it was really interesting, but again, I'm never going to read it again. I've outgrown it. I honestly don't know why I still have it, but hopefully some child in my neighborhood will get a lot of use out of it and will maybe decide to become a scientist because of it. This next book I have is Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I read this book a couple years ago. You might have seen my review of it I did a review of it on BookTube. It was okay, but I still need to see the movie, but I'm never going to read it again. I just don't think I don't know, if I want to read it again, I can get it from the library. I just don't think I'm going to dip my toe in that water once more. This is a book I've never read, and that is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Now, a lot of people say, like, oh, well, don't get rid of books that you haven't read yet. Well, I bought this for like a pittance. I think I got it maybe for free or just like a dime or something from a thrift store. And I was going through a phase where I was like, I need to learn about contrary opinions, and I've never read Ayn Rand, and everyone talks about her, so I need to learn about her too. And so I thought I need to read her books and discover that for myself. I did read Anthem. I did like Anthem, but Anthem has a very different tone from Atlas Shrugged. I've heard this book is trash from like a lot of people that I trust, and look at how thick it is. And it has like tiny print too. So I just think that I don't need to keep it. I don't need to waste my time with it. There's so many good books in the world. Why waste my time with Ayn Rand? That's kind of how I feel at the moment. Also, she was just kind of a trash human, and I'm kind of over reading books by trash humans. So there you go. The next book I have is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. This is another book that I reviewed on my BookTube channel. I read this book about 2 years ago, and I really did enjoy it, but I just don't think I'm going to read it again. At this point, everyone on BookTube and their mother has talked about this book, but it won the Man Booker Prize several years ago, and it's been very popular. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. I just don't think I'm going to read it again, honestly. And if I do, I can get it from the library. This is a book I had to read for a class, and it's Good Germs, Bad Germs, about health and survival in a bacterial world by Jessica Snyder Sachs. You can see it. There are still stickers on it from where I got the book used. I had to read this book for a class, and honestly, I remember it being okay, but it just didn't particularly wow me, and I'm never going to read it again. This is a book I got from my grandmother, and it is Extraordinary Ordinary People, A Memoir of Family by Condoleezza Rice. If you aren't from the United States, Condoleezza Rice was the Secretary of State, and she, during the Bush administration, the younger Bush, the Bush the son, and she is now currently a professor at Stanford University. I thought it would be interesting to see her origin story and see what her life was like. But, because, yeah, I just thought it would be interesting, but at this point, she's kind of faded from the political scenes and is no longer currently really that relevant, so I think, I have, more interesting political memoirs to get to. This is another book that I have never read, and it is The Pride of Carthage, a novel of Hannibal by David Anthony Durham. Someone tell me if this book is good or not, because it seems to be an epic retelling, but I had never heard of it. I got it for free. This parish near my house, this Catholic parish, holds a giant garage sale or a flea market every couple months or a year or so, and if you go if you go near the end, they'll give you stuff for free just because they don't want junk lying around. So sometimes I go and I pick up free books, and I just decide if it sounds interesting or not, just to pick it up, and then I decide to get rid of it if it no longer interests me, or if I decide that it just sounds terrible. Now this book is I have no idea what it's about, but I have never heard, but I have since gotten home and found no one talking about it, so I just don't need it in my life. Now this one's gonna be a little bit controversial, but hold on to your hats for a second. There is an explanation. I do have a collection of the Lord of the Rings books, all 3 of them, that I'm giving away. And before anyone in the comments yells at me, I do own another collection of the books that is actually just right up there. The reason why I'm giving this away is because there's no reason for me to own 2 copies, and that's just a little bit ridiculous. So I got these because when my great aunt died, we went through her books, and I got to pick which books of hers that I would like to keep and which ones we should donate to charity. And I selected these because I thought that they would be a little bit easier to read than my copy, but the books are just they are a little bit falling apart because they're so old. What edition are these? Yeah, these are from the 1970s, I believe. So, but hopefully they'll bring someone a lot of joy, and, yeah, I don't know. So, no one shoot me in the comments. The next book I have is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Again, this is a book I got at a flea market when it was just the last minute, and people were saying, take whatever you want, it's free, and that was because they didn't want to cart boxes filled with books back to their houses, and so they just let me have whatever I wanted. And so I thought, everyone was talking about Gone Girl at the time, and I thought, maybe I'll like Gone Girl, maybe I'll give a little bit of horror or thrillers a try, even though that's not typically my genre, but it has since been spoiled for me. I was watching some TV show, I can't even remember what it was now, and they mention a big spoiler that reveals the entire mystery about who kills her, and I'm like, no! And so now I just don't really have any interest in reading it anymore. But I don't know, maybe I'll be able to sell it and get some money. The next book I have is Winter Solstice, a novel by Rosamund Pilcher. Again, I think I got this book for free, or nearly for free, I don't remember exactly. And you can see I actually did try reading this one, but this is a book I DNF'd. I got, how many pages is that? Yeah, I got like 100 pages in. 90 pages in, but it just wasn't interesting to me, and it wasn't holding my attention. This was, I tried reading this about a year and a half ago. I'm still going to try Rosamund Pilcher. I do own her book, The Shell Seekers, and I'll give that a try sometime, but Winter Solstice just wasn't for me. Next book is Affluenza, The All-Consuming Epidemic, and this by John DeGraff, David Wan, Thomas H. Naylor. This is a book I bought for an English class, and it is about America's consumption of things and just obsession with owning stuff. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't even read all of it. I just kind of skimmed it, but I'm never going to read it again. So there you have it. Next book is The Midwife of Venice by Roberta Rich. This is a book that I bought separately on Amazon, and I paid way too much money for because I thought, I was browsing on Amazon searching for books as you do, and I saw this book, and it was called The Midwife of Venice, and it had this beautiful cover, and I thought, that looks really interesting. And I really I have like this special place in my heart for books about midwives, about historical fiction midwives. I just think that they're fascinating, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to treat myself, and I'm going to buy this book. And it was a total waste of money. As soon as it came in came in the mail, I just devoured it, and I tried reading it, and it was horrible. It was terrible. The writing was so absurdly bad. I was just so disappointed. And the reason why I kept it for this long, this was years ago that they even that I bought this. But the reason why I kept it for so long was because I felt so guilty for spending like $8 on it. It wasn't like that expensive, but like $8 for a single book when it's terrible and you never do anything with it is just horrible. Yeah, I feel. See, even just talking about it makes me feel guilty for spending that much money on it. But I was really disappointed, and I'm finally giving myself permission to let go of it because Marie Kondo says that's what you need to do. The Medici Effect: Breakthrough Insights at the Intersection of Ideas, Concepts, and Cultures by Franz Johansson. This is some kind of business book or whatever. I honestly don't even know why I have it. I just do for some reason. It's very mysterious, but I'm getting rid of it. The Purity Myth: How America's Obsession with Virginity is Hurting Young Women by Jessica Valenti. So I really like Jessica Valenti. I follow her on Twitter. I think she's really insightful, and she's she's a real warrior when it comes to modern feminism. But as regards to the Purity Myth, this book was just okay. I, in particular, was really interested in this book because I grew up very religious, and so virginity is very emphasized, and purity is a very important concept to religious people. But I felt like she really could have driven in the wedge a bit more. She didn't quite hit it out of the park with this one. But it was still a good book, and I think a lot of people will get a lot of worth out of it, but I'm just never going to read it again. This one is a little bit of a beast, and it is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. So Ken Follett is really well known for writing trashy thrillers and historical fiction novels. The summer after I graduated high school, I read a lot of books, and one of the books that I read was Pillars of the Earth. And it was not that good, but I was 17 at the time, to my 17-year-old brain, he was just a master of weaving together epic tales and of giving me this, like, huge epic saga and of these great characters. And it was just because I hadn't experienced great literature. I was really searching for literary fiction and for literature with, like, a lot of meaning, and I was searching for books that bridged that gap between young adult and like classical literature, like Hemingway and Fitzgerald and Dickens, but I couldn't really find any. So I found books like Pillars of the Earth, and so in my mind these books were great, but they weren't. And I have since, like, I haven't reread it because it's like 1,000 pages, but I remember a lot of the concepts, and I've since have listened to people's reviews of it and of people's people talk about it on their podcasts and such, and it's laughably bad, and I just have no interest in reading more Ken Follett. I read Winter of the World or something like that when he was like his World War I novel, but I just don't need to read this in my life. Like, he's a bad writer. His actual like his diction and the way he actually writes words, it's so sparse, and it's just I had to put the book down because it was so heavy. It's so sparse, and he just describes things like, she did A, she did B, she reconsidered doing A, like, and it's like there's no artistry there, and it's just immensely disappointing. So yeah, that's how I feel about Ken Follett, and I do have this book, and again, it takes up so much space. Like, I'm never going to read it again. Maybe someone else will like it, but it is a pretty cover, I will say, give it that. I do like the designs and everything, but I'm not going to keep a book for the cover. Next book I have is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, if you have been following my channel, you will know that I did not like Lolita. A lot of people love this book, and I have a video called An Unpopular Opinion on Lolita. It is one of my most popular videos, and this book took me forever to read because it was so traumatic to me, but read it I did, and I was very disappointed. I might read more Nabokov, I might not, I don't know, it just depends. Pale Fire I've heard is quite good, but then again I heard Lolita is very good too, so what do I know? Yeah, I'm just giving away my copy of Lolita because I'm never going to read it again, so there you have it. Next book I have is Utopia by Thomas More. Read this for a philosophy class, never going to read it again. If I, for whatever reason, am simply possessed with the urge to do so, then I'll get it from the library. It's really thin, doesn't take up that much space, but I don't need to keep it. I honestly didn't even remember that I still had it. And the last book I have is Breaking Clean by Judy Blunt. Now, apparently this book was a national bestseller, but, like, I had never heard of it. The reason why I even own this book, even though I DNF'd it, is because it was a read for my book club a while ago, and my library didn't have any copies, so I had to buy it. I spent like $9 on it, including shipping, and I don't know why the library didn't have it if it was a bestseller, but I was just so underwhelmed. I did not like it. I was just, yeah, I didn't feel any urge to keep reading. It's basically about a woman's life and the life of her family homesteading on the Montana frontier, and the difficulties that arise from that. But it just feels like a collection of someone's family stories and family lore, and, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it just doesn't need to be a book, you know? So so it just wasn't for me, so I'm giving it away. So this has turned to be quite a bit of a long video. I'll see if I can edit it down for you so you don't have to endure a huge thing. But I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Doei!